in this time where everyone wants to hear these things being spoken about, whether it's on a TED platform or whether it's at a conference or at a corporate get together, where they want to hear speakers like you or speakers in general raise these points and recognize how important they are, as opposed to just holding on to the material path with the outcome based system that a lot of us are conditioned to believe is the sort of means to happiness. Well, while that's really good, but I feel there's a lot of people who just sort of want to hear it, but they don't absorb it, because it's nice at an event which has an open bar after to sit down
Yeah,
and
yeah.
clap along, going, wow, amazing, empathy, consideration, compassion, and then just go like, when's my next raise? So I,
You're
I,
so right.
and I find that because I do when I used to do stand up, I used to go for some of these shows, and people would see me walking in with my I wouldn't say my blind cane, but my white stick, and they wouldn't know what the issue was until I spoke about it on stage. And I didn't overtly do it because, as you said, I don't want to be on this inspirational bandwagon, because I feel what got me to where I am today is a lot of my mom telling me, what, don't do it because you want to stand out and be inspirational, but just live a life that you'd be content with. And of course, I want to talk to you about all the other stuff that goes behind the scenes, which is a lot of work, but you don't call it inspiration. You just call it the struggle to live, right? And that's something you do because you want to live, not that you want an accolade for it or you want to be recognized with an award for it. But in a society like today, where everyone has the resources to people like you, the talks, various other people giving talks, how much are we shifting towards this? Because it feels like there are two worlds, where there is one world which continues to go on, where people are like, oh, I'm pursuing my passion, I'm going to do this, which is great, which but again ends up with the same game of how much did you make, how many views did you get, how popular are you. And again, in the corporate world, that's replicated with bonuses and packages. But at the same time, it's all these people like the god men and the spiritual leaders who are saying these things, right, which have been said for thousands of years, which is empathy, which is about looking within and understanding how being content is not about the material possessions you have, but it's about taking care of your family, people around you, blah blah blah. There's so many things which we can go into. But how much of this do you see, because you do present publicly very often, so how much is just talk, and how much of it is noise, and how much of it is actually being soaked in by people?
So let's be realistic. People like nice things generally. People
Yeah.
like to live in a nicer house than a not so nice house and have nice things around them. And I'd rather drive a nice car than a not so nice car. I mean, let's be realistic. It's nice to have nice things, but
Yeah.
um, if you've got nothing else apart from nice things, I think that's when the problems come.
Mm.
And I have this amazing privilege of speaking to people, and there might be 400 people in the room. If I touch one of those people to change one little thing in their life, job's done. I'm never going to please everyone all of the time. And I
Yeah.
think the change happens in people when you just hit a nerve. It may be that I or somebody else it could be in the supermarket, it could be walking the dog. Just say something that just you go, oh, hang on a minute. That's what I needed to hear today.
Mm.
And it's just reminding people sometimes. I mean, most people know this stuff, but it's easy to forget and get caught up in the expense account and the business trips and the meetings and the stress and the pressure of the corporate world and life and in general. Really easy to get caught up in that. And then sometimes somebody just says something and you stop for a moment, you think, okay, let me reset. That's what matters. And that's what would make the difference. And yes, I've been thinking catastrophically about what could happen, but actually I could, if I wanted to, I could flip this and see things in a very different way. And I suppose that's the opportunity that I enjoy, is just prompting people, just poking, prodding gently.
Mm.
And that's, I mean, everyone knows that mindset changes everything. And, this is not new. And it's really difficult to talk about it without sounding cheesy. But,
Yeah.
of course, we all know that we could all experience the same thing and all react very differently to exactly the same thing. We're all human. We're all complex. Every single one of us is complex. None of us are going to react to the same thing in the same way. And that's the beautiful thing about humanity, isn't it? That we are all so different. So, yeah, just being able to touch people at the right point when they need to hear something, to prompt them to do something they probably know, but they've
Yeah.
forgotten, or they just needed some little push. or prompt. I think that's probably um, the important thing for me. And it won't be me on stage. It might be, like I say, the shopkeeper or the policeman or the person serving the beer in the pub. It could be anywhere at any time. But it's lovely when you come across, you hear something or you read something and you think, oh, I needed that today.
Yeah.
We all
Mm.
take joy in those little things, don't we?
But that's so special. At the same time, we're kind of sold that, and this is I totally am in agreement with you. But you also kind of forget how important this is and how you need it, right? That another a fellow human being recognizes you, either by just saying something kind or saying something that you forgot about yourself. Yet we are constantly told, until you have a footprint which is large enough, especially since both of us are in similar fields when it comes to public speaking and talking, addressing groups. I still used to find some of the most amazing connections when I used to do small comedy rooms, right? It didn't have to be the big festivals or the famous rooms or the big theaters, but could just be a Monday night in a small open mic, or even when I do some talks or something. It could be that one person who's shy, but they make it an effort to come and speak to you. But as a public, I would say, personality, I'm not that public or that much of a personality, but you're constantly told that, oh, you don't have your social media game, you need to leverage the internet, which I agree, you have to be on it and you have to use it. But I don't know, I want to get your thoughts on that, because you can reach millions of people if you are lucky enough, or if you're smart enough, or you have a team that gets the quote unquote algorithms right. But how much of that do you feel is uh, gives you that kind of drive to push your message on the internet, versus these kind of interactions that one person or the three people you've changed by just reminding
Mm.
them of what they didn't know, or if they've forgotten, or something that they wanted to hear from you? How do you balance that?
Yeah, and it's a really good thing because I'm actually quite a shy person. I'd be the last person on a stage. So it's the same in social media. I really wouldn't do it if it wasn't part of my job
Mm,
to communicate the stuff that I feel passionately about. So I would be off everything given the choice, because
mhm,
I'm quite private. I don't really want everyone to know what I'm doing and where I am.
mm,
But I sort of have to put it out there to show that I practice what I preach. So I do a lot of physical exercise and training. And
mm,
if you're going to trust me and believe me, you need to see that I'm doing it too. So I put stuff out there.
yeah,
And it's very easy to get caught up, isn't it, in social media and how many likes and shares and all that stuff. And
yeah,
it's I'm thankfully I'm old enough that it doesn't bother me one bit. But
yeah,
I know that for some people it takes over their life, and that is so depressing. The concept of being, your day being good or bad is a result of how many likes you get. It's just madness.
mm,
So I really try not to get caught up in it. And yeah, I mean, I use social media to communicate my message. Also, I work for myself, so I need to
right,
create business and create opportunities. That's the reality of it. But I think it's soul destroying on so many levels. And
mm,
yeah, I mean, the thing is, humans like humans, don't they? We like human connection. And
yeah,
the current world that we live in is making connections that are pretty fake and pretty vacuous through, well, strangers. We're just meeting strangers, and people are so unkind, some people, which I've never got my head around why you would spend time writing mean things on social media, but people do. And
yeah,
that makes me curious, actually. I think
yeah,
you don't behave in a mean way unless you're really unhappy. So
yeah, yeah,
that's probably the root of that stuff. But yeah, social media is I'm not a fan,
mm,
but I play the game. I take part. That makes me slightly uncomfortable.
mm. That's such a interesting thing, that we have people who are s- unhappy with who they are or with their situation, and they're just so easily driven to kind of put someone down, or say mean things or hurtful things about whatever it may be. But they would think twice when they meet someone in the pub and say the same thing to that person, right? Or meet wherever one on one. But you clearly have seen a lot of people and helped a lot of people. But I want to talk about go back a few years to where what you went through to bring you to where you are today, because you help people with resilience, mental toughness. Um, so can you kind of paint a picture of, because I think this is exactly this, right? Like when you are subject to the to the the whims and the validation of strangers online, you clearly are setting yourself up for a lot of emotional damage if you're not strong
Yes.
enough, a lot of
Yeah, that's
bashing.
true. That's true.
But
Well, I mean, I can set the scene of where I came from, but I must do it in the context of this is not an unusual story. Um, I meet people. I've just come back from a conference. I don't know, 4 or 5 people came up to me and said exactly that happened to me. So my
mm,
story isn't unusual. I'm just stupid enough to stand on the stage and talk about it. But I came from, actually, if I'm honest, quite a white, middle class, privileged background.
mm,
But my mom was very mentally ill and a chain smoking alcoholic, which is a really horrible mix.
mm,
And she spent my childhood in psychiatric hospitals. And so I was sort of motherless. I remember from about 7, sort of, I was looking after her, and
mm,
that's a really ugly thing for a child to be caring for a parent.
yeah, yeah,
It's so messed up, and it sort of joins the dots for your future because you end up behaving in a way that you wouldn't had you been parented more normally. So I left home at 14. I was really in a destructive cycle down. I was really unhappy, really angry, really resentful. I just didn't have a normal family, and I just desperately wanted to feel loved and get some attention. So anyway, I ran away at 14. I never went back. I was homeless in London for a couple of years and sofa surfed, and heroin addict boyfriend, and I'm drinking now and I'm stealing now. I'm getting into trouble. My life was not great. I mean, I pulled myself out of all of that because I'd had a dream since I was about 6, maybe, that I wanted to be a rally driver. And this was clearly never going to happen based on the life I was living. But I went to a rally school. It changed my life. I thought I'm going to be a rally champion if it's the last thing on earth I do. And I know now, I didn't know at the time, but I think what was driving me to achieve something that was seemingly impossible based on my current situation was that I had this deep, intense desire to get my father's attention, who had disowned me when I left home. He said, I don't want anything to do with you. You're a
mm,
disgrace. You're embarrassing. Yeah, I don't want anything to do with you. So I didn't see my dad for 20 years. And I thought, if I could be a rally champion, maybe I could win his affection, attention. So that drove me. And that's, looking back, how I started to develop mental toughness. I didn't know that it was a thing. I'd never heard of mental toughness till 5 years ago. And then
mm,
all the pieces landed, and I thought, wow, this is me.
mm,
So I suppose against the odds, went from a homeless kid to a rally champion, and I sort of ended up in a car that's one of the best in the world at the time, and part of a team I never dreamt of. I completely blew myself away with what I was able to do. And then, of course, you get addicted to adrenaline and
mhm,
setting a goal and accomplishing it and completing it. And that quite excited me. It also validated that I was okay, which I
mm,
didn't feel. So I spent my life trying to do things that make me feel a bit better about myself, if I'm honest. And sometimes I do things that require, I'd stand on stage. I'm a shy person. I, it's only occurred to me last week. Why do I do the job I do? Well, I'm getting attention, which is really embarrassing to admit. But maybe that stuff just doesn't leave you. If you grow up in that environment, it sort of stays with you for a while. I'll grow out of it, I hope, at some point. But yeah, the interesting time that I had growing up actually served me really, really well, because I became really resilient, super determined, mega focused. It doesn't always play out so well in every part of your life, but on the whole, it served me very well. And I love proving to myself that I can do something I didn't think I could do, because human beings are phenomenal. We are capable of such great things. And I quite like tapping into it and finding out what I can and can't do. And, I am rubbish at an awful lot of things, but there's some things I surprise myself, and that's quite a nice feeling.